This is Main Street with Gary Allen. Now, here's Gary.
And a good Tuesday afternoon to you. Gary Allen with you here on Main Street. I hope you join us every Tuesday afternoon at 2 p.m. Hope you've had a wonderful week since the last time we saw each other. I hope everybody's happy, safe, and sound. We got a July 4th coming up, and I hope you have a good time there. We've got a great show for you today, but let me just first of all go through a little laundry list here. My executive producer, I want to thank Rick Del Vecchio. I also want to thank everybody at the Community News Network for allowing me to have this program. That's Michael and Grant Miller. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for allowing me to be on this program. Also, my studio producer, Andres, and of course, there's Ilion and Michael and Julian, and our community sponsors, the Japanese Garden of Miami, as well as the Elks Lodges of South Florida. Thank you very much for your continued support. My guest this afternoon is a gentleman I've known, I can't even fathom how many, maybe 25, 30 years, I guess. We first met in Los Angeles, where we were both comedians and actors, etc. Will is by far more successful than I was, but Will is an actor, a comedian, a director, a producer. He appeared on The Tonight Show over 50 times with Jonny Carson, Jay Leno, on the David Lettermen Show as well. He has been in a number of major productions, and he's also good friends with Bill Gates, which we're going to get into here in a little bit later on, as well as his background in show business itself. The name Schreiner should be familiar with you. We'll get into that a little bit later on as well, about his brother Ken. But without further ado, would you please welcome a very dear friend of mine and gentleman who is doing me a major favor by coming on this program today, Mr. Will Schreiner.
Well, hello, Gary. Good afternoon, everybody. It's nice to be here. I like your opening picture. Is that the Venetian Causeway that you have in that shot?
I think it is. I went through a whole bunch of pictures when I was putting all this together, and I wanted a cityscape kind of a thing, and that's the one that we all seem to agree on.
It's like Miami. I mean, I'm up the road in Fort Lauderdale, but at the times I've been down there, I've probably driven across that road a few thousand times in my life.
Yeah,
so it's good to see you locally producing the show.
Yes, it's wonderful to be doing a show locally, which is one of the reasons why I've been wanting to have you on for a while. I know you've been reluctant. You're on the road. You're taking care of your daughter, your son, which we're going to get into. That's almost the first question to a certain extent. And I know because of the pandemic, you've been kind of keeping a low profile. Although I know where I can find you if I need to find you, because Howard Allen even said the same thing. Just go find your local golf course, and he's there. So.
Yes, that's true. I'm a member at the Fort Lauderdale Country Club here in town, and I have a great time out there. They have 36 holes. I play speed golf. I play 9 holes in 50 minutes, and that's my activity. That, and I swim at the. I'm also a member of the Lauderdale Yacht Club, so I swim there about a mile or two a week. So it keeps me trying to stay in shape. As we get older, got to keep it together.
Trust me, I'm almost 70 years old, and it's like things, aches and pains and arthritis here and this, that over there, and everything else. Are you doing any flying these days? Because I know both you and I have a love for flying.
I did. I flew up to Okeechobee the other day for lunch in a TBM, which is a Cicada TBM turboprop, single engine turboprop. Went up there from Pompano for lunch and back the other day. I just moderated a convention for the TBM users group up in Pompano, and that was a lot of fun. It was 100 pilots, and it was a safety seminar, but they wanted someone to keep it light and moving, so who better than me? And I have some videos to show them all how they're not the only ones. I flew with the Blue Angels. I've flown a Cobra. I grew up with a seaplane. Jimmy Buffett and I used to fly around all the time in his planes. Yeah. So I got a lot of time flying, but it's not as often as I would like because it's just gotten so expensive. Get a hamburger in the Keys, it costs you $1,000 now. If you don't own a plane, I don't own a plane anymore. I've owned a few, but to go down there. So people used to say, "Hey, I'll buy lunch if you fly me down to the Keys." Now I say, "I'll buy lunch. You pay for the gas."
Yeah. I unfortunately, my tickets are all gone because of the glaucoma. I mean, it's just
Oh,
hampered me from flying. And like you, I had a chance to sit in the back seat with the Thunderbirds, which are because I was an Air Force guy, and I also sit in the back seat of a Phantom, and training going up the 150, 172, the beach, the twin engine and stuff like that.
yeah, that's pretty cool. I wanted to ride with the Thunderbirds. I did ride with the Blue Angels and had stick and throttle for about 15 minutes with them. And I've done a bunch of arrested wire takeoffs and landings on aircraft carriers, but not at the controls, sitting in the back.
Oh, I knew a number of Navy pilots over these. Matter of fact, I think you met the one guy too. I'm not sure. I think we talked about the last time you were on the show that trained the guys for Top Gun, at least how to react when they're in the cockpit for the filming of the movie. And I was asking him, I said, what's it like landing on a carrier at night? He said, it's like nothing you've ever experienced before, and it's twice as bad when there's a storm. And he said, you got to land, you only get so many shots at it. And
yeah, no, it's pretty. Just being out there on the deck. I've been on the deck at night when they're doing what they call the night quals, where they're practicing and they're doing arrested wire landings, and the sparks are coming off the deck and the tail hooks. Either they catch the wire or they miss the wire. When they touch down, full power in case they got to go around. So it's pretty exciting. It's not for the weak at heart, but I mean the Navy. I'm always amazed by the Navy. I've done a lot of USO stuff. We're getting our own ship here. We're getting a commissioned destroyer here called the USS Fort Lauderdale. It's coming in July. And
really?
I met Captain Guantanamo, who's the captain on board, and so we've done a couple of events at the yacht club in their honor, and it's pretty cool. They're not a carrier. They're going to carry more like helicopters.
Oh, okay. Because I performed. I don't know. I performed on the Midway, which is in San Diego.
Oh yeah.
With Tony Bennett, and that's another story within itself. But I actually walked from where the plane would sit before takeoff, and I walked it, and I went, "Holy mackerel! This is the ultimate." I mean, and they didn't have. I don't know if they were steam catapults back then. I guess they were.
I was shot off the Nimitz and the Stennis, and they're steam catapults. And when you get shot off, you get to the end of the thing, and the plane actually settles a little bit before it starts flying, and you could feel that when you're sitting in the back seat. It's pretty intimidating. And the guy, our pilot, said, "Hey, if we have an arrested engine or something, we're going in the water, and then the boat's got to turn quickly and not run you over." I'm like, "You have my attention now." But I've done shows. My favorite thing is we were out on the. I think we flew about 3 hours out to meet the Nimitz coming back from Hawaii to San Diego. And we landed on the deck. This is the first time I did it. We landed on the deck. We met everybody. And I said, we're going to do the show on the flight deck at 9 o'clock at night for 5,000 kids who are getting off the next morning. And they're wired up. And I said to the XO, I said, it's kind of windy up here at night. And he goes, no, we own the wind. And I didn't understand what he says. He says, no, we own the wind. So it's a 20-knot wind. Out of the west, they go 20 knots east, and it's zero wind on the deck. And I was with Jay Johnson. I've been with Tom, what's his name from Back to the Future? Tom, I got space on us. Tom Wilson. A bunch of comics I've taken on board. Gary Mulder.
Yeah.
We've all had a great time doing those shows out at sea. And like you say, it's an amazing. It's a city, and when you hit the dock, they could care less about us. So we fly off before we hit the dock.
Oh no! What you're the last thing that's on their mind, Will, unless you got a couple of girls hanging on your arms. That's about the only thing that they care about.
You're like, they're seeing their families. They could care less. I learned that one time I rode the boat in, and then from there on off, they used to shoot us off in the cod, and then they started flying us off in a helicopter. But we get back to North Island and get out of there before the boat even hit the dock.
Yeah, the one thing that I've always loved since I was a kid, and you know this because I've told you this numerous times. I always wanted to follow in my dad's footsteps and be an airline pilot. But, my business partner was up in New York on Sunday. He was supposed to come home and his flight was canceled and he had to rebook, blah, blah, blah. And this is the second time this happened to a friend of mine in the last week. And they said to me, what's going on? And I said, there's a lack of pilots. I said, the guys aren't coming out of the military like they used to because the airlines aren't paying like they used to. As you well know, they're not. The benefits are not there the way they used to be. But I never made it to the airlines. I mean, I flew in the Air Force, of course, but that was just I was flying a Huey, for God's sakes. I mean, and then my eyes started to go a little bad. Even when I knew you, when I first met you in Los Angeles, my eyes were okay. But they were like 20/40, not 20/20. But
yeah, well, yeah, it's important to have the vision up there. What was you saying before that? The ability to react goes with age. I mean, pilots took early retirement for a lot of them. They took it at 62 because of mandatory retirement at 65. But I know a bunch of pilots down here who just, they offered them a good ending package, termination package, and they took it. So now the airlines are, as travel demand has accelerated tremendously, especially right now, this time of year. People are trying to go anywhere. They're all COVID crazy and they want to get out of the house. And I just see it in the volume of people around town here. We're pretty much a tourist town here in Lauderdale. It's not crowded at all. So, I'll always love flying. I'll always stay current if I can. Sometimes it's hard to be in county.
Well, when I come home, even though I can't take controls of the airplane, you and I have got to go flying somehow. We got to figure it out.
Sure. Get $1,000 and call me.
No, I'll tell you what, I'll buy the hamburgers. Tommy Smith, an old friend of mine who used to produce this show. He loves you. He thinks you're an incredible director as well as an actor. And I agree 100%. Will Schreiner has been a dear friend of mine for so many years, and so good to me when I was in Los Angeles, in a sense of always being there and smiling. Will, your son is out there as a stand-up like you were. You're still doing stand-up. Chris DePetta's son is also out there as well as being an actor.
Chris's son got a big part in something. Yeah, I think.
He got a part in a movie. I was talking to Chris a couple days ago because Vicky Rossman, a mutual friend of ours, passed away last week. I don't know if you got my message or not.
I did not.
Yeah, she passed away, and she was wonderful to all comedians. But you're out there. Your son is out there. Chris's son is out there. With the mood of the country after COVID, and we're still kind of going through it, but also with the political stuff. And I know you don't like to get into political stuff very much, but how is it out there now compared to what it was, say, when you were going around with Kevin Nealon, say 10 years ago? I mean, are the audiences receptive, or are they tense and like wearing it on their shoulders, and you got to be even more careful than we used to be?
Oh, you got to be careful these days. The audiences are very woke, and they're very, they don't want to, unless you're Louis C.K. or you're Dave Chappelle or Ricky Gervais or one of these guys that's actually, even Saget, when he could attract an audience, he could go blue and dark because they knew what they were coming for. But if you're working like I do in the corporate arena, you got to be clean. You can't be offensive. I have some jokes that I used to kill with that I no longer do because they get ooh, you get the oohs, which is always the one heckle that's hard to deal with. But I think audiences will come back around. People have just been, we've got so many things to scare people. I mean, we've had so many variants of COVID here. Now and I just was reading today, we got monkeypox. We've got a lot of monkeypox here, and you can tell when you have it because you're climbing the drapes at home all the time, and you're having a banana. You want a banana daiquiri?
Banana daiquiri. Yeah. I was waiting for this. I was waiting for this until I fed you the right line, I guess.
I have better material, but it's all in a container ship offshore right now. But when it gets in, I'll be ready.
Oh God, it is so good to have you back on. I mean, it's I live, as you know, up in Palm Bay, Florida, which is a thriving metropolis of two. You remember the old jokes we used to say, the all-night diner closes at 12 noon? Well, they ain't kidding up here.
Oh yeah, no, my dad built a whole career about small town life. He had a joke that's been stolen by many people, which about his hometown didn't even have a traffic light, and they're finally getting a light, and they haven't bought it yet, but they picked out the colors.
Your dad was something else.
He had a lot of stuff. When I started out, I used a few of his jokes that they had a one-way. They're trying to be big city. They're putting in a one-way street, and they've had great success with it. Now they're talking about putting one in going the other way because people are stuck out of town. So he had some clever stuff, but he worked really clean, and he worked in the 50s and 60s.
Yeah, unlike my uncle, who Tubby worked so blue that that it's incredible how I ever ended up normal with having Tubby Boots as your uncle and him working
Right.
blue. Although around the dinner table, he would do clean jokes when he would come over for the holidays and everything, and he was funnier clean than he ever was dirty. And when I used to introduce him on the ship, I used to say, "Ladies and gentlemen, just to give you an idea how blue Tubby Boots is, I'm his nephew, and I get the hell out of this room when he starts." So
Yeah.
and he'd be halfway up the stage and he'd look at me and he'd go, you got me again, And
Yeah.
but you and I both share that. Let me ask you something. I know we've talked about this off the air, and I don't want to get too serious, but you and your sister and Ken, and your brother, of course, is Ken Schreiner, who played Scotty Baldwin on the General Hospital. Is he still on GH?
Yeah, he was on yesterday. They had a big look back at some of his career. He married Laura. Scotty and Laura were married before Luke and Laura, and they had a clip from that wedding. And I was usher number 3 in that wedding, but I did not get any coverage. They just cut around me, But he's been doing it. He's got he's been doing it for 45 years now, on and off,
Yeah.
and he's getting these. He gets 4 or 5 shows a month, which is enough to make your your union payments and keep your health insurance.
Yeah.
He lives in LA. He would rather be here. I like to send him pictures of me in the boat, just relaxing, just to make him mad and make him.
Hey, Schreiner, Schreiner, I'd rather be there with you.
I have a good life. So far, so good.
Yeah. I mean, I can think of how many of our friends are not. I mean, financially, with me starting all over again, coming out of Vegas, it's been kind of a disaster area too.
I know it's hard for a lot of people. I mean, I'm very fortunate because of all the television shows I either wrote on or directed on, that I have these pensions from the unions, the Directors Guild, the Writers Guild, SAG, AFTRA. I'm even an ASCAP. So I have 5 unions that generate some kind of income. Some months it's great. I tiptoe out to the mailbox, and sometimes I skip home back. But it's nice to have that source of income. I couldn't imagine working on ships anymore, because they have these comedy rooms now that are small. They don't pay any money, and you do 5 or 6 shows a night. One comedian said to me, they said you weren't dirty enough. I'm like, when do you hear that?
On a ship?
Yeah.
On a ship? I mean, I used to do corporate gigs like you did corporate gigs, and you got to be so squeaky clean. It's almost like you, as the comedian, fall asleep.
Yeah, when I do anything, I mean, some people will ask you what you're going to talk about. Some people, just let you go. But you and I know how to gauge a room. If you say something, I did a thing for the Coast Guard down here, and nobody told me that it was a night honoring women. So I had done 2 or 3 jokes about killing my wife.
Way to go, Bill. Way to go, babe.
Yeah, the end, the woman from the, I don't know, she was some commandant from the Coast Guard. She goes, this was an event honoring women. We didn't appreciate your jokes. I said, well, you might have told me that. You might have mentioned what it was for. Because I did some stand-up, and I did their auction. I raised them $60,000. I said, where's the thank you for that? Leave me. They had no items. I got $60,000 on a hand raise. And I said, I'll tell you another good joke if we get to 10,000, if we get to 20,000. So I had a bunch of good jokes, but some were about, killing wives, so anyway.
Hey, I still tell that joke. It's a long-standing joke, and it oh too well. My first 2 wives died from poison mushrooms. The third one died from a broken skull because she wouldn't eat the poison mushrooms.
Right.
How long has that been going around? I mean,
forever. A good wife is probably. People don't understand when I lecture about comedy, and I don't do as much as I used to. I used to go to schools. I went to the Jonny Carson School in Nebraska and did 2 days lecturing on acting and comedy and directing. But comedy has a victim, and people get upset. This woke generation is upset if they're at all the victim. I mean, what's happened to Chappelle and the LGBT community, and everybody's so up in arms. And I thought Chappelle's last special wasn't even that tough. I mean, it had a human sort of touching story about what he did for the trannies this daughter and son. I can't remember exactly, but I mean, and I think comedy as Carlin, it's supposed to make you think. It's supposed to upset the lines. You see all these clips of Carlin now. There's a documentary on HBO about him. I mean, George pushed the limits all the time, but he came late to that. He was a regular sort of regular kind of comic, and then he discovered college crowds and the sort of alternate comedy crowd, and did very well in it. But I don't think he could go back today to a college and do what he does. No. Seinfeld and a few of these guys said, no, we don't want anything to do with college kids. They're all too good. They're all too sensitive.
Yeah. John, I saw the tribute, the Mark Twain prize to Jon Stewart the other night.
I haven't seen that yet.
Oh, it's kind. He comes out at the end and he says, "I've been in this business 35 years. This is it. 8 people to talk about me, And but at the end he said, it's the political arena that's stifling comedians. Mm-hmm. It's the political arena, our leaders that are afraid of the truth." And I'm paraphrasing, of course. I can't put as eloquent as John would put it, but
right. It is people. There is no middle ground anymore. You're either on the left or the right. You're either woke or unwoke. It's hard to to remind people. And I was just talking to Ross Schaefer about it. About how is it okay to be funny anymore? It's sort of a question. It's like, we don't. Comedy is intended to make you think. It's intended to raise awareness for something in a light. Carlin used to always say, you take the world and you either tilt it or you tilt your perspective. To find something out of whack, and that's, I think, the challenge. I don't go out to the clubs anymore. I haven't been in a comedy club since COVID hit. So the only thing I do is I'm the Commodore at my yacht club right now this year. So I have a captive audience,
Do you wear the uniform?
Well, I have a hat and a whole deal. We only wear it on, on command, change of commands. But so I had to give my commencement, whatever you call it, commencements, whenever you're indoctrinated to Commodore. So I had a 30-minute, I did like 20 minutes with a crowd, and they were great. And I had, all kinds of stuff. And people were saying, God, we've never had a funny Commodore before. Is there something wrong with it?
Yeah,
but it's
never
funny.
Served in, yeah,
it's funny. I got a picture of this a couple of months ago. The Queen Mother in the Buckingham Palace, and she had her little son, their grandson, with his hands over his ears.
Yeah.
And I put that picture up, and I said, this is why we ask parents to ask their kids to behave in public. And we have some kids that get a little rowdy at our club, and I had mothers writing hate letters to me on it. I finally had to take it down on Facebook. Yeah, you don't know about, I said, I raised 2 kids and they turned out great. It's something called discipline. And I sort of wanted to start fighting with them about it. I just said, I'm just going to defriend these people. Done with it. It's not worth it.
It's not. People are so sensitive. They're wearing their feelings on their sleeves, as if this is the end all. I mean, you're up there to do your thing. By the way, 20 minutes isn't very long, as you well know.
What's 20 minutes? Oh, no, I know. My favorite quote, I got to find it now for you.
By the way,
this George Carlin quote, he says, everyone appreciates your honesty until you're honest with them. Then you're an asshole. I love that quote. I keep it on my phone, because people don't want honesty anymore. They want to hear their own agenda spouted back to them. So I don't know where the world of comedy's going, but
it's like the other day I watched Caddyshack and History of the World Part 1. Those movies, forget the financial end of it. Those 2 movies could not make it today because of the PC. They just couldn't be. Do you remember the hullabaloo about Caddyshack? Because it's right in
Caddyshack and Blazing Saddles was even worse. My friend Norman Stumberg was one of the writers of Blazing Saddles. You couldn't show that in a theater today.
No,
it's too bad.
No,
it's funny. It's still funny to me.
Do you remember the thing about Caddyshack when they start blowing up the golf course? It's right there on the landing of the Fort Lauderdale Airport. And the pilots were calling going,
Grand Oaks.
What the hell's going on down there?
Yeah, no, I played golf out there a few times, and they still sell all that stuff in the gift shop. From it's called now it's called Grand Oaks, but I think in the film it was Bushwoods was the name of the course that they used. They
I
made
think
up.
so. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
some of the
Chevy and
lines.
all those guys. Ted Knight I knew over the years. Ted was one as funny as it gets. Rodney,
Ted was. Oh, that was Rodney's first movie.
Mm-hmm.
That was Rodney's first movie, and he was the greatest line in the whole movie to me still is, "Hey, Mama, you must have been hot blank before electricity." I mean, that was. That was just great.
Rodney had a lot. He had a lot of great lines, and they were kind of ad-libbing that movie as they went. The guys that were making it, there was a lot of freedom. The young guys do that. Judd Apatow and Sandler and those guys. They do a couple of takes as written, and then they kind of spitball and ad lib, and a lot of times you make a funnier movie that way.
Yeah, I have actor, comedian, director, producer, you name it, Will Schreiner here with us on Mainstreet with Gary Allen on the C News Network. I'm glad you all could join us here at 2 p.m. in the afternoon. I don't want to bring the show down completely, but this last year, you and I both lost a number of friends, comedians, actors. You were talking earlier about Bob Saget and people. I talked to Bob about 8 or 9 months ago, briefly, for the first time in years, because he's so busy. But people would come up to me and say, "Oh, I just bought tickets to see Bob Saget, my wife and kids." And I'd go, "Whoa, whoa, whoa. How old are your kids?" And I even told this to Bob, and Bob says, "Oh, I get it all the time." And then he'd say, "Oh, they're about 14, 15. I said, you need to really rethink that. I said, he's not Danny Tanner. He never has been Danny Tanner. I said, you people are all with the Danny Tanner and, kind of stuff. But the one I wanted to talk about was Norm, because I think you knew Norm pretty well.
Well, I played golf with Norm on occasion, but I also directed his sitcom called Norm, which he was on with Laurie Metcalf was on it, and what was his name? I can't think of his name now. The guy that played the dad in Hoot was in it, and I'm spacing out on his name as well. But yeah, I knew Norm. I mean, Norm, and I met my second wife on Norm. She was a second AD, and I came in to guest direct 3 episodes, and we hit it off. And but Norm, I watched his special. Did you watch his last special that he did at home?
Yeah.
I mean, you could see he was preoccupied. I mean, I would go see Norm when he was in town. I'd go to the Improv, have lunch with him, and go see him. I mean, Norm he was like Shanley. They had no fear about not doing well. They just were going to do what they wanted to do, and was going over and not going over. I really enjoyed Norm. He was an odd bird, and somebody gave me his book the other day, which I haven't read, but I look forward to reading. But all of those guys, I was going through some PR material, and I had a poster opening for Louis Anderson at Lauderhill Performing Arts and opening for Bob Saget at Lauderhill Performing Arts. I'm like, oh my God, I'm killing these guys when I open for them, because and I said, I'm trying to get Bobby Collins to come down so I can open for him next year.
That's an inside joke, folks. It's funny. I would run into Louis when I was living in Las Vegas. Every once in a while, he'd say hi.
Well, didn't he live there for a while? Didn't he?
Yeah,
live in Vegas for a while?
Yeah, he had a contract with wasn't the Mirage, Excalibur. I think he had a deal with one of the hotels there, and he lived there for many years. But you could see the last time that I saw him that he was in a great deal of pain, and that's 15, 20 years ago. He wasn't even well back then. Of course, he had just come through that.
Right. Yeah, when he was here. Yeah, he was dragging when he was here. He came late I don't think he even rehearsed or did a sound check. Came in around like 10 of 8 for an 8 o'clock show, and I went on like at 8:05 and did a pretty strong half hour in front of him. And then you could tell he came out and was like, oh God, I gotta gear it up. And a few friends said, yeah, your energy was so much more, more powerful than Louis. And I said, well, I just think he was tired. He was run down. We did a couple pictures together, and Louis was, he had many health issues over the years, but such a sweet guy.
Yes, he really was. And then the one that caught me really off guard was Gilbert. That caught me completely off guard.
Yeah, I wasn't that close with Gilbert. I mean, I knew Gilbert and saw him at the clubs and things, but did not. But that came out of nowhere. Yeah.
Well, then I found out later he had multiple sclerosis or something.
Oh, really? Yeah. Well, Norm
Yeah,
didn't tell anybody. Norm told me he was sick. I think maybe one of his managers knew it, and nobody, Kevin Nealon and all of us that were friendly with him, nobody knew it. So it was such a shock when you wake up. I it's I don't know. It's we're all. I'm 68 now. We're all at an age where most of the people around us are going. If you didn't take care of yourself,
Yeah.
So it becomes a challenge. That's why I try to swim and play golf, and I drink this medicinal fluid called vodka. It keeps me young and healthy.
I prefer scotch myself, but that's
vitamin S. I drink vitamin V, but as long as it's one.
Yeah,
I
mean that's
vitamin groups. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. And then of course Bob, and the strangest thing about Bob going was he hit his head on how many times have you gone to bed and by accident hit your head on the back of the bedboard and you just go to sleep and you wake up the next morning. So I mean, I talked to Dave Coulier and Dave wouldn't say much. He just said, "Yeah, that's what he died from. He had a bad."
Yeah. Nobody really knows. Right. I mean, nobody really knows whether he slipped in the bathroom and he had a slow brain bleed or whatever. You know how he had his luggage by the door. He was packed up, ready to go in the morning, and he probably went down feeling great. And hey, it's probably the best way to go. In your sleep like that, as opposed to
he was
someone telling you how to drive.
He was so funny when I first met him, of course, at the Comedy Store, and then we were both at the Groundlings together, along with Kevin Costner, who I have only talked to briefly in the last 25 years.
He's actually doing some great work. We just watched the season finale of the Yellowstone. He's terrific. It's a great show, and it's amazing that guy Taylor Sheridan was like a cowboy and out of work actor, and now he's writing, directing, starring, training the horses, riding. He's amazing. To me, I don't know about you, I love to see a guy like that have that kind of success story.
Yes.
Where was that talent, and how come it hadn't been noticed before? He's really a talented guy, but the time. It's all about timing. Like who knows?
You know what this business is like.
Yeah.
You know what this business is like.
They saw this show and they could suddenly give you and I a sitcom together. Two guys doing a podcast on the floor talking about their prostate and other things that would appeal to the older kids.
Hey, I was going real good there for a while, and now it's kind of changed altogether.
You have a relationship working with Bill Gates. How did that begin?
Well, I wouldn't say we're friends. I had 4 close encounters with him doing a couple of projects. One was the Windows 2000 launch, and then he hired me to do his retirement video, which was kind of fun. And I think we've talked about it in the past. He had no idea where the funny really was on some of these things, but when I talked him through it, and I had him buy a DOS for Dummies book at the coffee shop counter, and why for a quarter, and he's like, why I don't get it, why is that funny? And I'm like, trust me, your whole shell of Microsoft was DOS. And he goes, I said, if it doesn't get a laugh, I'll mow your yard. And he, why you got it? Like well, we go to the MGM and the big arena there at the MGM Grand for the Comdex, and that's where it debuted, and you could not hear the dialogue after he picked up the book. It got such a big laugh. And I went back to his dressing room and said, well, I guess you'll be mowing my yard now.
Oh, God.
He was quite an interesting guy. It's funny, Dave, when I was directing Frasier at the time, they were always like, well, do you know Bill Gates? Can you get him on the show? I said, well, have you asked him? He said, we ask him every year because the show took place in Seattle. And they could never get him to come on the show. So I said, well, I don't know, I can ask. And after I'd done this project, Bill's one of his handlers called me and said, hey, do you think you could get Bill on Frasier? We've got this Vista project coming out. And I said, well, I don't know, they don't do that. So let me big shot. I can pull some strings. So it was just it was the 200th episode. and Kelsey's in the radio station, and Bill comes in to talk about this new product, Visa product, which was a big shameless promotion, but they were happy to have him. He's a promotable name. And then I took him around the lot, and I guess you want a little tour of the lot, and he was like a kid in a candy store. I took him into the Star Trek set. I took him in to meet Bob Goen at Entertainment Tonight. I was taking him around. I kept telling him, hey, I don't want to keep you too long. You'll miss your flight back to Seattle. And after about the third time, he goes, I have my own plane. I go, I'm just pulling your leg. I know you got a plane. You have a challenge. Exactly.
Did Kelsey get a kick out of having Bill Gates on?
Oh, yes, Kelsey got a kick. Everybody got a kick. Everybody got a picture with him. But what was funny to me, and I really was the instrument that put that together. Kelsey was on Oprah like shortly thereafter, and she said, how did you get Bill Gates on your show? And he said, oh, he was a fan and he wanted to do it. And it was no, I was completely cast aside.
What?
But,
oh,
yes, I know. I said,
and
I don't have to tell you, there's no gratitude in show business.
No, because after the last time I spoke to Saget, he was going to call me 2 weeks later to come on the show, and I never heard from him. I mean, which how showbiz is.
Well, the one thing, sadly, I mean, and nothing against you, but I mean, hundreds of people ask me to come on their shows and their podcasts, and you just can't do them all. I mean, I don't find myself that interesting anymore. I've heard all these stories. They get old.
Yeah, but you and I are friends, and I like having my friends on these programs. Like I have Ray Abruzzo on, and I'll have Adrian Paul from the Highlander on, and I can't get Loretta Swit or some of my other friends on because Loretta doesn't know how to operate the electronics to come on. So it's like okay, I have the guys on from Happy, huh?
Yeah, we did a Hollywood Squares. It was for the museum.
Yes, you did. Bruce Valanche said you did a great job.
But there were a couple of stars on there, and I think it was the girl from WKRP, Penny Anderson, could not figure out how to, is it what, where do I look? I don't know. It was just funny because some people are out of their element on the internet.
And Bruce Valanche said,
I have a good microphone. You got to have a good microphone. That's how it helps the audio be better.
Yeah, this is what I got.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah,
I have a better camera, but I just I don't want the beauty to be too hard through the lens.
Bruce Valanche was on the show, and we talked about it, and Bill Haran talked about it, and I said, well, please, I don't know if he gave you my message or not, but I said, tell Will, I said hello, because you and I hadn't talked in a while because you've been busy off doing all this other stuff. But Valanche said he enjoys working with you a lot, so that's something that he said.
I love Bruce. I mean, we did we did a bunch of things over the years. He was a guest on my talk show. Was a great guest on the talk show back then. He's on the road now. He does a little dog and pony show. He comes down here to the Black Box once in a while, and I keep meaning to go up there to see him, but Boca is like, it's out of my perimeter.
What? Oh, come on.
Come on,
it's right up the road. Will, it's right up the road. What, 15 minutes?
It's a waste. Like Peter Vogel always wants to have lunch. I'm like, Peter, you're too far away. Where are you, in Boynton Beach? I don't even know where that is.
Is Peter up in Boynton? I know he's done the show. Is he in Boynton?
Yeah, I think he's in Boynton. I think he's living in Boynton, somewhere up that way. And he's doing his, he's got his own show, and then he does the other Solomon show.
Yeah.
So he said he's going to come down and do it here at our little theater here. And I said, well, maybe I'll come see it if it's up the street.
You're like my sister. She never came to see me in any productions I was in New York or wherever. Just like, I don't want to see my brother. I've seen enough of that. One thing before we get too far away from Bill Gates, what was your take on him before you really got to meet him? I mean, what surprised you about him when you did meet him compared to what you thought?
I understand. He kind of lives in a bubble, being who he is. When I would explain a couple of jokes to him, the way he took a liking to me is because we were talking about the run of the show, and I was doing this big, it was a $12 million launch event at the Bill Graham in San Francisco. And he comes in, and they were like, oh, when Bill gets here, if he doesn't like it, we'll be here all night re-editing and all this stuff. I go, well, we don't want him to do that. We want him to like it. So he asked me for the run of the show, and I said, well, we do e-commerce, and then we do multimedia, then we do enterprise, and he goes, no, we do enterprise first, and I just kind of look in his eye and I go, you're wrong, Bill. We do enterprise last. And he kind of shook for a second, and I smiled and I said, you don't hear that very often. You don't hear the wrong word very often, do you? He goes, no, I really don't. I go, well, I don't use it unless I meet. And I said, we're going to get on famously if we have this trust in each other. And from there on out, he trusted me on jokes. And, I built this giant, I didn't build it, but we built this giant cube computer that opened up. It was the size of a house, and it opened up and showed a video. And so he wanted some jokes to talk about when he first started. And I said, do you like the laptop computer they made me? You wouldn't believe the trouble I had getting the overhead bin on the flight down here. And he kind of stared blankly at me for a second. I said, Bill, hold on right there. You remember when you used to fly on a airliner? You put your luggage. Oh, yeah, that's good. That's good. He liked the joke. And I said, you're losing touch. You're losing touch.
Oh God. Oh God.
But I think he got a kick out of that. But what's funny is I did 3 projects that were all pretty much home runs, and I never got hired again. I don't know why. Who knows?
Yeah, he moved on. Will Schreiner is joining us here on Main Street. Gary Allen with you as I am every Tuesday at 2 p.m. And it's always a pleasure to have this man on, my friend. What would really make me happy is when I do eventually get the chance to come home, hopefully financially, with the rents being what they are. You and I, and maybe if Ken is in town, maybe we go over to Diner 84 where you used to bust tables and
Lester's Diner, yeah.
Or we can go down to Grandpa's in Dania. Or is that too far for you to travel now?
That's just right on the bubble. I don't like to go south of the airport.
It's maybe a quarter of a mile.
We got Joe's Diner right here on 17th Street. It's 2 minutes.
Oh yeah.
I'll pay.
You'll pay? Okay, I'm there. I'm with you, Schreiner. I'm with you, man.
I've had breakfast there with a lot of comics who are on a layover. A lot of these ships come in to Port Everglades, which is like a minute for me, and they lay over for while they unload and get it back on. So they'll come over and we'll have breakfast with Rick Corso, and and Kelly Monteith used to do it. A bunch of guys are coming through town, and I see them. They all come over to get on the internet and do their thing. But a lot of guys, sadly, I don't know. I know Tommy McTeague, and I know some guys that are still out there working the cruise ships, but I don't know a lot of them anymore. And I encouraged my son. I said, you really want to get good at comedy, take one of those gigs on a ship, because you do 5 or 6 shows a night, so you can really hone your 20-minute, 30-minute set. So, but I think, it's the times I've done the cruise ships, and I've done them as a headliner, where you get on and you got a big cabin and you're one night, it's your show. And then I've done them with Paul Castronova, who's a radio guy here in town.
Yeah, I remember Paul.
Yeah, so we did a fan cruise, and we did the show in the hockey or in the skating arena, which was, it's just not the same. But we went to Cozumel and I forget what else we went to, Key West, and the ships, I don't know, they don't appeal to me that much. I mean, you really, unless you want to read or do something, everybody I know, they just work out, that's all there is to do.
Well, I was on the Emerald Seas for 2.5 years, I think about 2.5 years. I was cruise staff, and I wouldn't do a cruise ship again. I have buddies of mine that are telling me, Will, that when you reach a certain age, the ships aren't booking you anymore because your jokes are old compared to the young comedians that are coming along.
Right. Somebody said the booker for the Royal Caribbean doesn't even want to see the Tonight Show tape. If you have a Tonight Show spot on your reel, they don't even want to see it. Take it off.
What?
But, I have friends like Doug Cameron, who's a very talented jazz violinist, and he's been around the world, 10 dozen times, doing. And he's got his kids now playing music, so at least he gets his family goes with him. But whenever I see his emails or his posts, he's somewhere he's been all over the world. But I don't know. I used to travel an awful lot when I was doing the home show, because we were doing 100,000 miles a year, and I've been all over the world, and I don't really desire to go far anymore. Peter Greenberg, who's a travel guy, is a good buddy of mine. When I traveled with him, we traveled in style, stayed at the Peninsula Hotel in Hong Kong. And you get picked up at a Rolls Royce, and everybody's kissing your ass. And I'll travel like that if we can do that again. But now it's get your get your duffel bag and move on.
Yeah, it's I traveled a lot as a kid because of my dad being, who my dad was, and his brothers were pilots for the airlines too. So I got to travel, and then in the Air Force, I got to travel quite a bit, and it was always a lot of fun. But I don't like traveling all that much anymore. I mean, if you and I got in an airplane and flew over to the Bahamas and had lunch and then came back, of course, that'd be an expensive lunch nowadays.
That's best. Yeah, that's the best. I still go out to the Bahamas. I have a buddy who flies cargo to all of these billionaires and the Exumas. So we go out and we take a load of stuff out there. Then he lets me fly the empty leg back. And the Bahamas are one of the prettiest places, and their economy just took a huge hit during COVID, and they're trying to rebuild. And like everywhere else, a lot of times they're happy to see us in some of those places. They've even lifted the restrictions down in the Bahamas on coming in there without being tested. But yeah, flying gives you a lot of it. Everywhere I ever went on the road, I would go, I would rent a plane and fly around for a half hour, a couple hours, whatever. So, but yeah, it's different. I get when I used to meet the old comics, and they talk about young guys, and I'm an old comic, and it's the young guys. These young guys, and they pick jokes. Come on.
You're not. I mean, all right, we're in our late 60s. I'm a year older than you, but we're not old. I mean, we're doing okay. I mean, we're still here.
Yeah, no, I don't feel old because I stay active. I mean, there's one of those sketches that shows a guy playing tennis or playing golf, or the other guy with a walker. Which one do you want to be in your old age?
Yeah,
so
and I think it's a state of mind too. I really do. I think it's a state of mind. I think show business helps keep you young. Even if you're retired from it, you're not performing actively, you're still doing your shtick for your friends, and you're having fun, and you're off doing all kinds of stuff. But it is what it is. You were talking earlier about your son going on the cruise ships and doing 5 shows a night. I remember when I first got started, I remember the best advice I ever got, was from Tubby and other comedians, was, you want to be a good comedian, get out on the stage and just perform. Just get out there and do it and do it and do it and do it and do it. And I wonder if the young comedians today understand that.
Yeah, no, they're all out there. I mean, Buddy Hackett said the same thing. Look at any show you can do. It's a free rehearsal, and get out. And my son has found voice acting to be a little bit more, it actually pays a lot better than stand up. And he has a studio in his closet, and he does commercials, he does animation, he does video games. Then he also goes in and does ADR looping on TV shows, and he loves it. He makes a decent living doing it. He's off my payroll. And he also, now is working to get on camera more. He wants to do more on camera stuff. So he went out to a friend's ranch the other day, put on a cowboy hat, and rode a horse around on camera, decided to submit himself for all these Western shows that are out there looking for young actors. And I said, that's smart, buddy. You're thinking ahead, because nobody's thinking about you. You know how on a resume, everybody says they can do everything. Oh yeah, I can do, I can do this, I can do that. And then they get there and they go, we took a woman who said she was a jockey, wanted to be a jockey. We took her out, and the handler said, "You would kill this woman if you put her on a horse." Good television.
It's amazing you were talking about him doing voiceovers for cartoons and stuff. When I was out there, and what the agents are like out there, I must have sent my tapes out to everybody in the world. Even Kuye was giving me a helping hand, opening some doors for me, and they were all giving me the same line over and over again. Oh, you sound just like 50 other guys on my roster, or sound like, and I did all those impressions for all those years. And it's amazing. It's amazing how advertising agencies don't like to use celebrity impersonations because they're afraid of getting sued.
Sure. Yeah. Well, the old days was, if you wanted to sound like an announcer, you have a professional voice. Then the industry went away from the kind of the traditional sound. They went to the more casual. I remember when Tom Sharp, his career took off because he was from Chicago. He had a little bit of a twang to his voice, and Tom worked endlessly. Other guys, like Maurice LaMarche and these guys could do all kinds of stuff. A guy I hired for one of my Bill Gates projects was Frank Welker.
Yes.
Who was amazing. One thing. and he's the voice of one of the crispy white Rice Krispies, and Frank, amazing guys. I mean, the voice work is great because I thought this was an audio only thing. So the reason I'm late, I had to jump in the shower and shave because I didn't realize we're going to be on camera.
That's all right.
I got to be camera. As my brother says, I'm camera ready. He says he's camera ready at all times, and I said I'm buffet ready at all
times. Yeah, let's go over to the Rio or the Bellagio, and I don't know which one do you. I like the Rio's buffets. What do you think?
Last time I was there, I was doing a corporate thing for a ATM group. We stayed at Caesars where I was, completely comped. So I didn't leave the property. I ate at Nobu one night, at Bobby Flay's one night. My son was with me, and we ate quite well. And then we went over to see the Beatles show. The one at the Mirage was terrific.
Mirage,
yeah. Remember that. Yeah,
That's
great.
It was
great. I mean,
do you know the only show? Yeah, you know the only show of the Cirque du Soleil shows that have canceled and faded out was the Elvis show out there. Of all places to have the Elvis show full. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, I was shocked.
Yeah, I just saw Jimmy Fallon had the kid that plays Elvis in the movie. The kid's so charming and talented. I mean, he's in a. Baz Luhrmann is also an amazing director. I can't wait to see. I went to see Top Gun last week in the IMAX, and that was really well done. I mean, being in the IMAX with the big screen, and it had heart, it had story. It was emotional, as we like to say. I mean, there were places where I remember they always said, "Did you cry?" I said, "Yeah, I remember when I cried. I cried when I went up to the ticket window and said $36 for 2 tickets was when I cried."
What?
Well, in IMAX, it was like, I think it was $16 a ticket or something.
Wow. So what did you think? I mean,
I thought it was great. I thought it was great. I thought the way they handled Val Kilmer was great. I thought, all the kids were really good. The footage was amazing. And, the whole process, they took these kids and started them in 152s or 172s. They put them in extras or long easies or some aerobatic planes. And, I thought all the kids were good. I mean, it's going to be it's already hit $1 billion. And it's great for recruiting. When the first Top Gun came out, it was a big spike in naval aviation recruiting. So I met at that, and I met Tom Cruise. To me, I've met him a couple of times, and he's very, humble, unassuming guy, and he loves talking airplanes. So you see his love of aviation, and he flies all kinds of stuff. That was his Mustang. He was flying that Mustang with Jennifer Connelly. I don't know how they got insurance for any of that, but they did.
Yeah. Well, he took James Colburn up.
I saw that. Yeah, that was pretty funny for the.
James was like, "Oh no, I don't want to do this again." And it is amazing. People have no thought process of what it's like. People will ask me, "Did you ever fly on a jet?" Well, yeah. I mean, when I was in the Air Force, I flew on a few. And we did some wing overs and stuff like that, but you got to be prepared for it. It's really Do you think this is it? There's not going to be a Maverick 2 or another one, do you?
I don't know. When anything makes $1 billion, you might wonder. Yeah. That Mustang. I don't know if you've ever been in a P-51 Mustang, but that's an amazing ride. It's got a big Rolls Royce, 16-cylinder engine. And it's a rocket, and it's designed to fight as a fighter. I had a ride with an ex-Marine, crazy Vietnam Marine pilot who was gonna scare me, and he did scare me.
My dad flew Corsairs for the Marine Corps, and
good for him,
and it's a funny thing about that airplane, because of the gull wing. It really wasn't carrier based very much. It was usually land based because of the aerodynamics. And my one uncle flew, and my one uncle flew in B-17s in the 8th Air Force with Jimmy Stewart's squadron. Although he didn't get to meet Stewart very much, he got to meet him. But he said Jimmy was a pilot like all the rest of us. There was no showbiz to him. He flew. And then my other uncle flew B-24s for the 9th Air Force. And he did 2 of the raids over Palesti. Now, for a lot of people out there, they have no idea what that's like. That was a gruesome and horrible raids, all 3 of them, before they knocked out those oil refineries. And the stories I used to hear from them was just unbelievable. And me, I just flew Hueys, man. That's it.
Let's
Yeah, but
see.
not as
I
impressive
once I was going up to Santa Rosa, and we stopped in Sacramento to pick up a couple of guys who were going to go with us, and it turned out to be Bud Anderson and Chuck Yeager. And
Oof.
so they spent the
Oof.
weekend with us up in the Redwoods, and it was amazing. And he was a Yeager, he's just an old cowboy. And
Oh,
he
yeah.
told it, he did talk about breaking, the X1 and a whole deal. And the next day I got up and I said, yeah, you meeting Yeager on the flight was amazing. And I said, we flew into Santa Rosa, and we hit some turbulence, and he threw up all over me, and people big laugh from the crowd. And he comes charges me a great, but he goes, "You tell that didn't happen. You tell that's a," he, and he knew it was a gag, but he was getting a good laugh out of strangling me over.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Hey, well, speaking of which, where do you see the space program going? I don't know if you pay a lot of attention to it or not, but
Well, I mean, there's so much stuff flying around out there. I don't know. I mean, eventually the exploration, I just think it's kind of like wind turbines in the water. I mean, it's so far off from being anything that's going to be practical. But, I mean, obviously, we can have internet anywhere in the world now at the drop of a hat. We can have pictures. I mean, there are things that the space program that Musk is doing with all of his satellites. But the space stations and the colonization of another planet, that's out of my. We won't be around for that.
no,
I don't think.
I don't think so either. Will, we're almost out of time, but I just wanted to thank
We're
you so
barely
very much.
civilized on this planet. We're barely civilized on this planet, Gary.
That's true. That
Getting worse.
that's probably about as true as anybody's ever going to put it compared to what's going on. The worst thing that we do to one another, and I learned this as a kid, long before I went to Vietnam, is war. When we kill each other, and we can't seem to ever stop it. I mean, it's all around the world, all the time, 24/7, no matter what year, no matter when you're talking, there's always somebody warring against somebody. And we just can't seem to learn to get along about anything. And that's the depressing part about the future. What's it going to be like long after you and I and Ken and our dear friends are all gone? What's this world going to look like? I mean, if the current situation in Washington isn't kiboshed, what's going to happen? Is every election now going to be contested? That it's a big lie?
Right. Yeah. Well, without love and truth and respect, it's a lousy world.
Yeah, it is. But as long as I have friends well, I will. And lunch is on you. And as long as I have good friends like you, and I've never met Ken. Ken came once when we played softball at Fairfax High School. He came there and he stood there for just a little bit, and then he left. I guess it was a Sunday. We always played on a Saturday. And he came and he was there. He talked to you for a few minutes and then he left. I never met him, but I'm hoping to rectify that one of these years.
That's my favorite visit from my brother. He comes and talks to me for a few minutes, then he leaves.
He always, Ken always has this expression on his face like he's got an Excedrin headache.
These actors, he's solely an actor. It's everything all about him. It's actors. It's all about themselves. But he's a good guy. He's enjoying life a little bit, I think. Hopefully.
Yeah.
After all this time, he's very nice to his fans. So if you come up and tell him what a fan you are of him, then you got his ear for half an hour.
Yeah, it's like, hey, you open up a refrigerator, I'm good for a half hour. You know what I mean? All that kind of crazy stuff. Listen, I love you with all my heart. You know that. You are one of my dear friends. And I thank you for doing this.
I'm glad you're doing well. And keep it up and keep doing this stuff and keep entertaining people and informing them and enjoy life. That's my only advice. Enjoy life.
Well, as soon as my boat comes in and I have some financial freedom, I'll be a whole lot happier than I am at the moment because things are real tight. But I got to tell you something. I'm rich with friends, and one of the main things I will enjoy coming home is that wherever I live, you're not out of my boundaries. We'll get together and do some great stuff, and you'll have to fly most of the time, but I'll pay for the $1,000 hamburger, and we'll go over to the Bahamas.
I got a little boat. I got a little money. You don't need a lot. I got friends with lots. All you need is a little bit. So
yeah. Hey, I love you, Will. Will, I love you with all my heart. You know that. You're one of my dear friends, and I thank you for doing this. And we will do this again. And when I get home, I want to put together something where you're with me a couple of times a month, and we'll get a sponsor for you, and we'll do some good stuff. Stay where you are, because I got to end this crazy program. I want to thank all of you out there, and I want to thank my guest, Mr. Will Schreiner, for joining us here on Main Street. Next week, we've got the Elks joining us, and we'll talk about their progress in South Florida. And I hope you take care of yourself, and please, thank you for joining us. But until next week, I want to thank all of you for taking the time to join us here, and I thank everybody at C News Network. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.